Welcome to Lantern and Lullaby. I'm so glad you've chosen to spend this quiet evening here. Before tonight's journey begins, allow yourself to get comfortable. Let the day drift gently behind you and allow your breathing to settle. Tonight, a lonely road through the rainy countryside will lead somewhere that should not be there. Beyond the mist, warm lights are waiting. An old carousel turns beneath the rain, and a midnight fair is about to reveal a world hidden far beyond its glowing midway. So, whenever you're ready, listen to the rain against the glass, follow the distant lights beyond the fields, and our story begins. The road ahead is narrow and dark, winding gently between high hedges glazed by the rain. Water gathers in shallow silver pools along the verge and glides quietly beneath the tires. Beyond the glass, the countryside has become a soft arrangement of fields, bare branches, and drifting mist. There have been no houses for several miles now, and no other lights except the faint reflection of cloud on the wet road. The steady rainfall makes the world feel smaller, quieter, and somehow more private. For now, there is nothing to do but follow the empty lane as it disappears into the sleeping night. A break in the hedge opens suddenly onto a wide field, and something warm glows far beyond it. At first, the light is so faint that it could be moonlight caught beneath the clouds. But when the road bends and the view opens again, the glow is still there. It stretches low across the horizon, too broad to belong to a single farmhouse. Mist moves slowly across it, hiding and revealing the light in soft amber bands. Beneath the whisper of rain, you think you hear a few distant notes of music. They are gone almost at once, leaving only the glow and the quiet road ahead. A little farther on, a narrow lane turns away between two old hedgerows. There is no sign beside it, and nothing to suggest where it leads. The road beyond is barely wide enough for one vehicle, with wet grass leaning in from both sides. For a moment, you continue past. Then the distant glow appears once more through the trees, almost directly in line with the hidden turning. Curiosity gently wins. You take the smaller road and immediately enter a tunnel of branches, rainwater slipping from twig to twig overhead. The ordinary road is left behind, and the night seems to close softly around you. The hedges eventually fall away, and the lane carries you onto open land. Dark fields roll beneath the low cloud, their grasses bending softly in the wind. Narrow ditches beside the road hold thin ribbons of silver water. The warm glow is stronger now, rising from somewhere beyond a shallow ridge ahead. Every few moments, the wind carries another trace of music toward you. A few rounded notes, gentle and old-fashioned, then silence again. There are still no houses, no traffic, and no obvious reason for lights to be shining out here. The lane continues toward them anyway, crossing the rain-dark fields as though it has always known the way. At the top of the ridge, a line of tall trees rises against the cloudy sky. Something moves slowly behind them. At first, you can make out only a curved outline, turning above the branches. Then the mist thins, and tiny golden lights trace the shape into view. It is a Ferris wheel. The upper half of it glides silently above the treetops, enormous and impossibly graceful. There should not be a fair out here. You have seen no signs, no parked cars, and no distant buildings. Yet the wheel continues its patient turn while rain catches the lights in soft golden threads. The lane curves around the edge of the trees, and the mystery begins to open. Warm bulbs appear between the trunks, first in small clusters and then in long, graceful lines. Below them are striped canvas roofs, painted wooden facades, and the rounded tops of old-fashioned pavilions. The Ferris wheel now rises almost completely above the woodland. Nothing flashes or blares. There is no neon, no loud machinery, and no crowd. Only polished wood, brass, cream and burgundy canvas, and hundreds of warm lights softened by mist. Puddles beside the lane begin reflecting the fair in trembling streaks of gold. The lane ends at a broad arrival ground laid with pale gravel and dark wooden walkways. Several beautifully painted travelling wagons stand beneath old trees at one side, each lit by a small brass lamp. Across the open space, striped roofs rise behind an elegant entrance structure. Everything is neat, dry beneath its awnings, and quietly illuminated. There is no sense of abandonment. The fair simply feels still, as though the day has folded away, and this quieter version has begun in its place. Rain darkens the gravel and beads along the painted wagon roofs. Beyond them, the Ferris wheel turns steadily through the mist. A broad path leads toward the entrance arch. Two carved wooden columns support a sweeping canopy edged with rows of warm bulbs. Painted panels in faded cream, deep burgundy and muted blue curl around polished brass fittings. There is no written name above the gateway. No announcement tells you what this place is. Beyond the arch, a glowing avenue stretches beneath striped awnings, while rain falls in a silver curtain from the canopy edge. The old melody you heard across the fields is clearer now. Standing beneath the lights, you feel the simple certainty that everything beyond this point belongs to the midnight fair. You pass beneath the arch and step into shelter. A long covered walkway stretches ahead beneath alternating panels of striped canvas. Rain that had fallen openly around you now taps softly overhead, turning into a low and comforting rhythm. Painted wooden posts divide the path into warm little bays. Glass lamps hang beneath the canopy, casting gentle pools of light across polished boards. Through narrow openings at either side, you catch glimpses of tents, flower tubs, and the slow Ferris wheel beyond. The music grows a little clearer with every step. Somewhere deeper inside, something mechanical turns with a soft, steady hum. The walkway widens into a graceful ticket arcade. Small booths curve around one side, built from polished dark wood, with brass-framed windows and scalloped roofs. Their shutters are open, but the counters are quiet and perfectly tidy. Soft lamps glow inside each booth. Across from them, velvet benches sit beneath painted panels of flowers, moons, and curling clouds. There are no prices, tickets, or written instructions anywhere. Two open archways lead onward from the arcade. Warm light spills through both. From one comes the faint sound of carousel music, while the other carries the scent of sugar and warm spice. You choose the wider archway and the fair opens before you. A broad midway stretches far into the mist, lined with painted stalls beneath striped awnings. Strings of warm bulbs sweep overhead in graceful curves. Beyond them rise glass pavilions, tent peaks, and the great wheel turning above the rooftops. Rain falls through the open spaces between shelters, turning the wet paving into a field of reflections. The midway is quiet rather than empty. Everything seems prepared, illuminated, and waiting. Farther down the avenue, another row of bulbs glows to life, one gentle section at a time, as though showing you where to walk next. For a little while, you simply listen. The melody, drifting along the midway, is slow and rounded, carried by the mellow sound of an old organ. Tiny bell-like notes appear above it now and then, before fading into the rain. Water taps against canvas, slips from awnings, and runs through narrow channels beside the walkway. The Ferris wheel makes a low turning sound whenever the wind shifts in your direction. Nothing here is loud. The music, rain, and machinery seem to have settled into the same gentle rhythm. You begin walking again, letting that quiet rhythm draw you farther into the fair. The midway narrows beside a long row of covered stalls. Dark wooden boards shine beneath the rain, and small puddles collect between the seams. Every one holds a tiny reflected fair of its own. Golden bulbs ripple across the water, while stripes of cream and burgundy stretch and break beneath falling drops. In one larger puddle, the Ferris wheel appears upside down for a moment before dissolving into rings. You pass from one shelter to the next. The stalls beside you remain warmly lit, with chairs tucked away and counters carefully arranged. The whole place feels less discovered than prepared, as though it expected a visitor tonight. The next row of stalls is too beautiful to hurry past. Each facade has been painted by hand in deep greens, burgundy, cream, and fine lines of gold. One is decorated with small stars, another with flowers and curling leaves. Warm round bulbs follow the shapes of the roofs and counters without overwhelming the darker colors beneath them. Simple games wait inside. Wooden rings rest beside polished pegs, and painted skittles stand in perfect rows. There are no bright advertisements and nothing demanding attention. The pleasure is simply in looking at the craftsmanship while rain murmurs softly beyond the awnings. A covered lane branches away from the main midway. Quiet games line both sides beneath low hanging lamps. Small balls are arranged in neat pyramids. Wooden hoops rest in shallow trays, and carved targets wait beneath painted arches. Behind glass, shelves hold soft animals in muted colors, tiny music boxes, miniature carriages, and carefully wrapped parcels. Nothing feels loud or gaudy. Even the prizes seem chosen to belong here. At the far end, a new string of bulbs gradually brightens and reveals the path onward. For a moment, you wonder whether the fair will still be here when morning comes. The covered lane rejoins the midway beneath a meeting of canvas roofs. Cream, burgundy, and faded blue canopies overlap above a broad, sheltered square. Rain drums softly across the fabric and spills from the lowest corners into copper bowls. Small cafe tables sit neatly beneath one side of the shelter. At the center, a circular planter overflows with glossy leaves and pale flowers. From here, several parts of the fair are visible at once. The Ferris wheel rises to the right. A brighter avenue continues ahead, and to the left, beneath hundreds of tiny lights, something turns slowly behind the striped roofs. You take the left-hand path, and the canvas opens onto a round pavilion ahead. Its canopy is painted in deep red and warm ivory, edged with delicate gold ornament. Hundreds of tiny bulbs trace a perfect circle through the mist. Beneath them, the carousel turns slowly. Carved horses rise and fall beside painted swans and elegant enclosed carriages. No one rides them, but the movement feels peaceful rather than strange. The music is clearer here, gentle enough to blend with the rain. Light from the rotating platform moves across the wet ground in slow, repeating patterns, drawing you closer with every turn. Before you reach the carousel, warmth drifts from a small pavilion beside the path. Its windows are lightly misted from within. The air carries the scent of butter, cinnamon, caramelized sugar, and warm pastry. Inside, neat rows of glazed buns, fruit tarts, and folded pastries rest beneath glass domes. Copper pans hang against a tiled wall, and a small oven gives off a soft amber glow. There are no labels and no one behind the counter, yet everything looks freshly prepared. Rain whispers against the striped awning, while a faint curl of steam rises from one tray. The fair begins to feel not only magical, but deeply comfortable. A narrow path beside the pastry pavilion leads into a circular courtyard. Dozens of glass lanterns hang overhead at different heights, glowing in pale green, amber, clear, and smoky blue. Rain drifts between them and catches the light as it falls. Circular benches surround planters filled with ferns, ivy, and pale night flowers. A tiny fountain rises from a dark stone basin at the center, its soft trickle barely louder than the rain. For a few moments, the court feels completely separate from the wider fair. Then you notice an opening opposite the one through which you entered. Beyond it waits a much greater glow. You pass through the opening and arrive where all the paths seem to meet. The central square is larger than you expected. The carousel turns on one side beneath its crown of warm lights, while the Ferris wheel rises opposite, disappearing into mist above the roofs. Between them stand grand pavilions with arched windows, striped domes, and sweeping glass canopies. Broad avenues leave the square in several directions, each leading toward another softly glowing part of the fair. Wet stone reflects gold, deep red, cream, and silver. Only now do you realize how little of this place you have seen. The midnight fair stretches far beyond the square, and every path seems to promise something new. The carousel waits at the edge of the central square, turning with the same unhurried rhythm you heard from afar. You step beneath its painted canopy, and the sound of the rain softens beneath the roof. Warm bulbs glow around the circular platform, reflected in polished brass and dark wet wood. Carved horses rise and fall beside swans and enclosed carriages, every surface carefully painted and gilded. There is no crowd pressing around the rail and no attendant calling for riders. Only the quiet mechanism beneath the floor, the rounded melody above it, and the rain beyond the shelter. For a while, you simply stand within the turning light and let the whole fair revolve gently around you. Beneath the carousel roof, the painted panels overhead come into clearer view. Deep red and warm ivory sections curve toward the center, edged with fine gold lines and tiny floral details. The bulbs around the canopy are bright enough to warm the wood without making the space harsh. Rain ticks softly on the outer edge while the platform turns beneath your feet. Mirrors between the painted scenes catch fragments of lamps, carved horses, and passing reflections of the wet square beyond. Each rotation brings the same familiar view back again, but never in quite the same way. The movement is slow, steady, and soothing, like a clock that has forgotten to measure anything except the night. You walk along the inner edge of the platform where the carved animals pass one by one. Some are painted in cream and chestnut, with polished saddles and tiny brass buckles. Others are swans with curved necks, their feathers picked out in soft ivory and gold. Between them are enclosed carriages with rounded windows and deep upholstered seats. No two pieces are exactly alike. The craftsmanship feels old and careful, every carved curl and painted flower designed to be noticed at close range. As the carousel circles, warm light slides across the glossy figures and then fades again into shadow. It feels less like a ride and more like a moving gallery. You step back onto the outer walk that surrounds the carousel. From here, the central square opens around you again, softened by mist and fine rain. The Ferris wheel turns above the rooftops, while the midway disappears beneath strings of lights in the opposite direction. The carousel casts moving bands of gold across the wet paving at your feet. Flower beds and low railings curve around the platform, their leaves shining with rain. For a moment, the whole fair seems to move in slow circles around this one bright center. Then a warm scent drifts across the square from a nearby pavilion. Sweet, spiced, and comforting, it leads you onward. The confectionery pavilion stands beneath a scalloped awning of cream and burgundy canvas. Its windows are bright with warm light, their lower edges lightly misted from the heat inside. Behind the glass are rows of sugared fruit, glazed sweets, wrapped confections and small pastries arranged on polished shelves. Clear jars catch the light in soft reflections, though none carry labels. Copper scoops rest beside little trays, and ribbons of steam curl faintly from a warming pan near the back. Outside, rain runs from the awning in thin silver threads. The contrast between the cool night and the warm pavilion makes the place feel especially inviting. Just beyond the confectionery counter, a smaller booth offers something warmer. A row of simple cups rests beneath a brass shelf, each one clean and waiting. Behind them, copper kettles give off a faint haze of steam. The air smells of cocoa, apple, cinnamon, and something lightly spiced. You pause beneath the awning while rain whispers against the canvas overhead. A warm cup sits ready on the counter, as though placed there only moments ago. There is no need to ask who prepared it. Tonight, the fair seems to understand what is needed before the thought fully forms. You take the warmth with you and continue at an easy pace. The path curves toward a cafe set beneath a broad, open-sided canopy. Small, round tables stand beneath hanging lamps, each paired with dark wooden chairs and a tiny vase of pale flowers. Rain falls just beyond the edge of the shelter, turning the surrounding paving into a sheet of gold and silver reflections. A long counter rests at the back, beneath shelves of cups, jars, and polished copper pots. Nothing is busy. Nothing needs serving. The cafe simply offers a quiet place to sit while the Ferris wheel moves beyond the canvas roof. You remain for a little while, listening to the rain and the distant carousel music drift through the fair. Leaving the cafe, you follow a crescent-shaped row of smaller stalls. Their fronts are painted in deep green, faded blue and burgundy, each one trimmed with narrow lines of gold. Inside are little objects arranged beneath warm lamps. Ribbons rest in shallow drawers. Small carved ornaments sit on velvet trays. Tiny music boxes, polished wooden keepsakes, and glass decorations fill the shelves. The displays are beautiful without feeling crowded. You move slowly from one counter to the next, enjoying the quiet detail of each stall. Overhead, strings of bulbs follow the curve of the lane and disappear into mist at the far end. The crescent opens into a long, covered gallery lined with glass-fronted cabinets. Behind the glass are prizes unlike anything found at an ordinary fair. Soft animals in muted colors sit beside carved boxes, miniature carriages, small clocks without visible faces, and folded parcels tied with ribbon. The cabinets are framed in dark polished wood and lit by tiny shaded lamps. Rain sounds gently on the roof above. Every object has been arranged with care, as though chosen for beauty rather than value. You do not feel any urge to win or take anything. It is enough simply to walk through the gallery and wonder who might have made them all. At the far end of the prize gallery, the path opens beside a miniature railway platform. A small covered station stands beneath painted ironwork and a striped roof. The rails curve away between flower beds and low lamps before disappearing behind the tents. Waiting on the track is a beautifully detailed little train with polished wooden sides and brass fittings. Its windows glow softly from within. There is no station name and no timetable. Only a few dry benches beneath the roof and the quiet sound of rain falling beyond the platform. A carriage door stands open. The railway, like everything else tonight, appears ready when you are. The little train moves away from the platform almost without a jolt. Its wheels click softly over the rails as the station lamps begin to recede behind you. The track curves behind the larger tents, revealing quiet service paths, flower beds, and the backs of painted pavilions. For a while, the railway runs beneath trees hung with tiny bulbs. Then it crosses a narrow bridge over a shallow stream that glimmers in the rain. The fair looks different from here, more private and hidden. You catch glimpses of the Ferris wheel between rooftops, then lose it again behind canvas and trees. The train continues at a pace that never asks you to hurry. The railway enters a landscaped part of the fair where the paths widen into gardens. Low hedges curve around beds filled with dark leaves, pale flowers, and small ornamental trees. Tiny lamps stand close to the ground, their light shining upward through wet branches. The rails pass beside a long reflecting pool, where raindrops scatter the lights into trembling rings. Beyond it, a glass pavilion glows among the planting. For a few moments, the fair feels almost like a private park, with the music reduced to a faint memory behind the trees. The train glides onward through the gardens, carrying you deeper into the night. Ahead, the track rises gently onto a narrow iron bridge. From the middle, you can look down over one of the lower fair avenues. Striped roofs sit close together beneath sweeping strings of bulbs, while small paths wind between them like dark ribbons. Rain turns every roof and railing glossy. The Ferris wheel rises beyond the scene, partly hidden by mist and treetops. Below the bridge, water gathers in a narrow channel and carries reflections away beneath the arches. The train slows just enough for the view to linger. Then the rails dip again, and the bridge disappears behind you. The miniature railway returns you near the base of the Ferris wheel. Its boarding hall is larger than expected, enclosed by painted wood, iron railings, and a wide roof trimmed with warm bulbs. The wheel turns overhead with such patience that it seems almost still from below. Carriages arrive one by one at the platform and continue onward, without stopping for long. The floor is dry beneath the shelter, though rain sparkles just beyond the open sides. Brass rails guide a gentle path toward the boarding point. There are no cues and no voices, only the low turning of the wheel and the soft ticking of rain against the roof. A carriage reaches the platform and waits with its door open. You step inside and settle into the quiet enclosed space. The door closes softly, and almost at once the ground begins to fall away. At first, you rise only above the nearby roofs. Then the central square opens beneath you, the carousel becoming a bright circle surrounded by wet stone. Strings of bulbs stretch between pavilions like glowing threads. Rain moves across the carriage windows in fine diagonal lines. The wheel continues upward with no sudden movement, lifting you slowly into the mist above the fair. Higher now, the midnight fair spreads across the dark land below. Avenues of warm light curve between striped roofs, glass halls, and garden paths. The miniature railway traces a thin loop through the quieter outer grounds. The carousel glows at the center, like a small golden crown. Beyond the fair, the countryside is almost entirely black, with only faint ridges and tree lines visible beneath the cloud. Rain and mist soften the edges of everything. From this height, the fair no longer feels like a collection of rides and stalls. It feels like a whole little world, glowing alone in the sleeping countryside. Near the highest point, the wheel slows even further. For a few quiet moments, the carriage seems suspended beneath the cloud. The roofs below shine dark red, cream and silver, where the rain catches them. Tiny lamps outline paths that were impossible to notice from the ground. The carousel music is too distant to hear clearly now, reduced to the faintest suggestion beneath the rain. Beyond the fair, mist lies across the fields like pale smoke. Nothing moves quickly anywhere. You remain high above the lights, held between the quiet sky and the glowing world below. The carriage begins its slow descent. Mist slides past the windows, and the roofs gradually rise to meet you again. Strings of bulbs that looked like fine threads from above become bright individual lights. The carousel grows larger. The tops of striped tents return one by one beneath the carriage. Rain continues to bead and travel across the glass. As the wheel lowers you toward the platform, the sounds of the fair gently return. The organ music becomes clearer. Water drips from awnings. The hidden machinery beneath the wheel resumes its soft turning hum. Soon, the carriage settles back beneath the boarding roof. Leaving the Ferris wheel, you find a broader avenue continuing beyond the familiar center of the fair. The stalls here are taller and more elaborate, with glass-fronted upper levels and painted balconies beneath sweeping awnings. Warm lamps glow behind arched windows. The avenue itself is quieter, with wider gaps between the pavilions and more planting along the edges. Rain runs in narrow channels beside the paving. Farther ahead, the lights become softer and the buildings more enclosed. the music from the midway begins to fade behind you. This part of the fair feels less like an attraction and more like an invitation to discover what lies beyond the obvious. At the end of the Grand Avenue, a different quarter of the fair begins. Several large pavilions stand close together beneath glass roofs, painted domes, and deep striped canopies. Their entrances are framed by warm lamps rather than strings of bright bulbs. Through one doorway, you glimpse polished glass and repeating reflections. Another reveals pale flowers beneath a moonlit roof. Farther along, a third doorway is misted from within by warm conservatory air. The sounds of the midway have become distant here. Rain whispers across glass and canvas, while the hidden pavilions wait in quiet rows. You choose the first doorway and step toward a stranger part of the fair. You step through the first doorway and enter a pavilion of polished glass and dark wood. Tall mirrored panels rise between brass columns, multiplying the warm lamps into long repeating corridors. Nothing distorts or twists. The reflections are calm, precise, and almost architectural, showing the same arches, flower tubs, and glowing ceiling lights from slightly different angles. Rain moves softly across the glass roof above. Every few steps, another opening appears where you did not notice one before. The pavilion seems larger on the inside than it looked from the avenue. Still, the path remains easy to follow, drawing you deeper through a quiet world of light, glass, and rain. The next gallery narrows, and the reflections begin to stretch farther ahead. Rows of small bulbs run along the ceiling and repeat themselves in the glass until they seem to continue without end. Polished floors carry the same lines of light beneath you. For a moment, it becomes difficult to tell where the real gallery stops and its reflections begin. Yet the effect is never confusing. It is soft, symmetrical, and strangely soothing. The rain above becomes a faint silver pattern across the roof. At the far end, one bright doorway remains steady among all the repeating lights. You follow it, leaving the endless reflections behind. Beyond the gallery, the walls change from mirrors to clear-cut glass. Tall panels of crystal-like glass form a narrow passage beneath a vaulted roof. Their edges catch the warm lamps and break them into tiny fragments of gold, pale green, and soft blue. The colors move gently as you walk. Rainwater threads down the outer panes, turning the lights into wavering ribbons. The passage curves around a central garden you can only glimpse through the glass. Pale leaves, white flowers, and a small pool appear between the reflections. Then the corridor widens, and a pair of open glass doors leads you directly towards the garden itself. You step into a moon garden beneath a high glass roof. The space is cooler and quieter than the fair outside. Pale flowers grow in broad beds around silver-leaved shrubs and dark, glossy foliage. Soft moonlight filters through the rain-clouded roof, mixing with a few restrained lamps hidden among the planting. Narrow stone paths curve between the beds. Water gathers on leaves and slips into the soil in tiny drops. At the center, a white marble fountain glows softly beneath the glass. The distant midway music has almost disappeared. Here, there is only rain, water, and the faint movement of leaves beneath the roof. The path brings you to the fountain court at the center of the moon garden. A circular basin of pale marble rests beneath the highest point of the glass dome. Several thin streams of water rise and fall with hardly a splash. The surface below remains almost perfectly still, broken only by the rings of falling droplets from the roof. White flowers and silver-green leaves surround the court in low beds. Beyond them, arched openings lead into other parts of the pavilion. One carries warm mist, another holds a deeper green glow. You pause beside the fountain before choosing the greener passage and following it onward. The passage becomes a long conservatory arcade. Tall glass walls rise on both sides beneath a curved iron roof. Palms, climbing vines, and glossy leaves fill the beds beside the walkway. Warm mist hangs lightly in the air, softening the lamps and gathering on the glass. Rain continues outside, but its sound is gentler here, filtered through foliage and roof panels. The stone path remains dry beneath your feet. Every few yards, a narrow side opening reveals another pocket of planting or a small bench beneath leaves. Ahead, the conservatory grows brighter and greener, leading toward a much larger glasshouse. The arcade opens into a vast tropical glasshouse. Broad leaves rise almost to the roof, layered in deep green beneath warm mist. Orchids and pale flowers grow among ferns at the edges of the path. A narrow stream runs through the center, clear enough to reflect the iron ribs of the dome above. The air is warm and damp, carrying the scent of wet leaves and earth. Rain trickles down the outer glass in long silver lines. Across the stream, a little bridge disappears beneath hanging plants. The whole pavilion feels impossibly far from the cold, rainy fair outside, though the lights of the midway still glow faintly beyond the glass. You follow the path to the little fern bridge. Its dark wooden boards curve gently over the stream beneath an arch of trailing leaves. Water moves quietly below, carrying reflections of lamps and glass overhead. Ferns crowd close to the railings, their wet fronds shining in the warm light. At the far end, the planting begins to thin. The temperature seems to change almost immediately. Warm mist fades from the glass. Beyond the final palms, a set of pale frosted doors stands beneath an iron arch. A cool white glow shines through them, completely different from the green warmth behind you. The frosted doors are cold beneath the surrounding lamps. Their glass is clouded with delicate patterns like ice on a winter window. Beyond them, you can make out only pale shapes and a soft white light. The tropical glasshouse remains behind you, warm and green. Ahead, the air feels cool enough to notice even before you cross the threshold. The doors open quietly. A breath of cold air drifts into the passage, For a moment, warm mist and cool vapor meet between the two pavilions. Then you step through, and the color of the fair changes from deep green and gold to silver, ivory and soft blue. The winter garden lies beneath a vaulted roof of pale glass. Silver branches rise from beds of white flowers and low evergreen shrubs. A thin layer of frost glitters along the edges of stone paths. Small lamps glow beneath the branches, giving the garden warmth without changing its cool color. Beyond the glass, snow seems to fall softly into the darkness. Inside, only a few flakes drift through narrow openings in the roof. The air is crisp but comfortable. You follow the path between frost-covered planters while the sound of rain from the earlier pavilions slowly gives way to the softer hush of snow. The winter path opens into a sheltered lantern court. A circular opening in the roof allows a gentle fall of snow into the center. Around it, glass lanterns hang from dark metal frames, glowing in warm amber and pale gold. The flakes pass through the light before settling on the stone below. Covered walkways ring the court, their roofs protecting benches and planters from the snowfall. Small, evergreen trees stand between the columns. The contrast is beautiful. Warm lantern light above fresh white snow. You linger beneath the shelter until a different sound reaches you from the next doorway. A few quiet mechanical notes, perfectly timed and softly played. Beyond the lantern court is a gallery of mechanical instruments. Polished wooden cabinets line the walls beneath warm, shaded lamps. Inside them are small organs, brass chimes, music boxes, and delicate mechanisms of wheels and levers. Nothing moves quickly. A cylinder turns slowly behind glass. A set of tiny hammers rises and falls against metal bars. Somewhere farther down the room, a mellow organ chord appears and fades. The machines seem less like exhibits and more like patient performers waiting for their turn. You walk between them while the soft patterns of music overlap with the distant rain on the pavilion roof. At the end of the gallery, a pair of doors opens into a circular music room. Instruments are arranged around the walls as though an orchestra has just stepped away. A piano rests beneath one arch. Strings sit upright in polished stands. Small brass instruments gleam beneath the lamps. Then, without anyone touching them, the music begins. One soft piano note, a low string tone, a quiet bell. Each sound enters slowly, leaving plenty of silence around it. The room never becomes loud. The self-playing orchestra seems to understand that midnight is a time for softer music. You remain until the final chord fades into the ceiling above. A dark passage beyond the music room leads into a much larger hall. At first, the ceiling seems to have disappeared. Then your eyes adjust, and hundreds of tiny lights reveal themselves overhead. They form a deep field of stars across a midnight blue dome. Some are bright, others are barely visible. A faint silver band crosses the center like distant mist in the sky. The floor below is dark and polished, reflecting the lights until it seems as though stars exist beneath you as well. There are no seats or displays, only the quiet open hall and its private night sky. You cross it slowly, surrounded by stars above and below. The starlight hall narrows into another chamber where lanterns hang freely in the darkness. They are suspended at different heights, each enclosed in clear or softly colored glass. Some glow pale gold, others shine with muted blue, green, or amber light. The floor beneath them is almost black and catches each lantern as a soft reflection. Nothing seems to support the highest lights. They drift so gently that it is difficult to tell whether they are moving at all. You pass beneath them one by one. Ahead, a painted archway glows with colors softer than the lanterns, leading into a long, curved passage. The passage beyond is painted from floor to ceiling. Soft clouds move across the walls in pale blue and silver. Distant mountains appear between them. Farther on, the scene becomes a moonlit lake, then a field beneath stars, then a quiet shoreline under rain. There are no figures anywhere in the paintings, only landscapes flowing into one another as the corridor curves. Small, concealed lamps keep the colors gentle. The effect feels less like walking past pictures and more like moving through the edge of a dream. At the end, the painted walls open suddenly onto real dark water. A narrow indoor canal runs beneath a high glass roof. The water is almost perfectly still, reflecting the arches, lamps, and rain above. Small boats are moored along the stone edge beneath curved iron canopies. Low bridges cross the canal farther ahead. Beyond them, doors and balconies rise from dark polished wood and pale stone. Rain travels across the glass ceiling, its sound spreading softly through the long space. One little covered boat waits beside the landing with its door open. The canal disappears beneath the first bridge and continues into a quieter part of the pavilion. You step aboard. The boat moves away from the landing with barely a ripple. A small covered roof shelters you while the canal carries you beneath the glass. Warm lamps pass slowly along the stone walls. Above, rain slides down the roof in silver streams. The boat glides beneath a low bridge, then another. Through one side opening, you glimpse a tiny garden court. Through another, a staircase rises behind arched windows. There is no engine noise, only the gentle movement of water against the hull. Ahead, the canal widens beneath an open courtyard where balconies and trailing plants appear in the mist. The boat reaches a small landing inside a hidden inner courtyard. Tall balconies rise around the space beneath sheltered roofs. Trailing plants spill from stone planters and dark wooden rails. Warm lamps glow beside several closed doors. At the center, a shallow pool receives water from a narrow wall fountain. The canal disappears beneath an arch on the opposite side, but the path now continues on foot. Rain falls through the open center of the courtyard, while the surrounding walkways remain dry. Beside one balcony, a broad staircase rises toward a higher level of the fair. For the first time, you begin to sense another world above the rooftops. You leave the canal behind and approach the broad stair. Its steps are pale stone, bordered by dark iron railings and low lamps. The staircase rises beneath a glass canopy before turning toward an upper gallery. Looking back, you can still see the courtyard below and the faint glow of the canal through the arches. Looking upward, only warm windows and the underside of higher roofs are visible. The midway feels very far away now. Even the Ferris wheel has disappeared behind the pavilions. You begin climbing at an easy pace. At the top, a new level of the midnight fair waits beyond the rain-dark glass. At the top of the staircase, the upper gallery opens beneath a long glass canopy. From here, the hidden courtyard is far below, its canal reduced to a dark ribbon between roofs. Warm windows line one side of the gallery, while the other opens through arches toward the night. Rain travels across the glass above in silver threads. Beyond the railing, the roofs of the fair spread away at several different heights. You can see domes, awnings, chimneys, and narrow bridges that were completely invisible from the ground. A covered path continues ahead along the roofline. You follow it, leaving the hidden pavilions beneath you. A narrow line of bulbs beneath the canopy traces the route forward without making the gallery bright. The gallery becomes a rain-lit promenade running between the upper roofs. Dark iron columns support a narrow glass canopy, and water gathers along its edges before slipping into copper gutters. On one side, tall windows glow softly behind curtains. On the other, the fair drops away into mist. The Ferris wheel appears again in the distance, but now you see it almost level with the upper carriages. Small lamps stand at intervals along the promenade, illuminating planters of ivy and pale flowers. The path curves around a dome and reveals a brighter rooftop court ahead. Every surface seems washed clean by the rain, from the iron rails to the dark slate roofs below. The rooftop court is arranged like a tiny garden above the fair. Low hedges form gentle circles around beds of dark leaves and silver flowers. At the center stands a curious mechanical tree of dark metal and polished brass. Its branches carry dozens of small closed flowers made from painted copper. As you approach, one flower opens with a quiet click, then another. A soft sequence travels through the branches until the whole tree is covered in delicate metallic blooms. Rain beads along the leaves of the real plants beneath it. Nothing performs for applause here. The garden simply wakes as you pass. Tiny drops gather inside the metal petals before falling into the planting beds with soft taps. A narrow path circles the mechanical tree and leads into a smaller court. Here, hundreds of tiny metal flowers grow from shallow stone beds. Their petals are colored in muted blue, cream, burgundy, and pale gold. Small, hidden mechanisms turn beneath the soil, causing the flowers to open and close in slow waves. Between them, narrow channels carry clear rainwater toward a circular basin. The sound is barely more than a trickle. Warm lamps reflect from polished petals and wet stone. At the far side, a glass door stands open beneath a striped awning, and the scent of tea and spice drifts into the garden. The mechanical flowers move so slowly that the change is visible only when you look back along the bed. Beyond the glass door is a quiet tea room overlooking the roofs. Round tables stand beside tall windows, each set with simple cups, small plates, and a vase of pale flowers. Deep green chairs sit beneath shaded lamps. Along the back wall, polished shelves hold teapots, glass jars, and copper kettles without a single label. Steam rises gently from one pot. Outside the windows, rain moves across the fair in silver lines, while the Ferris wheel turns beyond the rooftops. You remain near the glass for a little while. From this height, even the brighter midway looks distant and soft. A small covered balcony beyond one window holds two empty chairs facing the rain-dark skyline. A second doorway from the tea room leads into a broad glass pavilion. Its polished floor is almost empty. Tall arched windows rise around the walls, and a shallow dome curves overhead. Thousands of tiny lights are set into the cornice in a slow, repeating pattern. As you cross the room, the lights brighten one section at a time, traveling around the pavilion like a silent waltz. The floor catches each movement as a soft reflection. There are no dancers and no music loud enough to fill the space. Only the rain at the windows and a faint melody arriving from somewhere beyond the next arch. Near the center, a circular pattern in the wood turns the traveling light into a pale ring around the room. The next room resembles a small theater, though there are no rows of seats. A wide painted screen curves around the far wall beneath an ornate proscenium. At first it shows a quiet mountain valley beneath moonlight. Then the painted panels begin to move almost imperceptibly. Clouds slide across the peaks. The valley becomes a lake, then a forest, then a distant coast beneath rain. The scenery changes through hidden rollers and layered painted screens, rather than any harsh projection. You stand in the warm darkness while one landscape dissolves gently into another. When the coast fades, a doorway at the side opens onto the night air. You begin to notice that the landscapes borrow the same colors as the fair outside. Silver rain, deep blue night, and restrained gold. The doorway leads onto a high, sheltered platform. Beyond the railing, an elegant aerial swing ride rises above the roofline. Its central column is painted deep burgundy and cream, with restrained gold ornament beneath a wide circular crown. Long chains descend from the canopy to empty wooden chairs. The ride turns so slowly that the chairs hang only slightly outward. Warm bulbs trace the edge of the crown through the rain. A covered boarding bridge connects the platform to the ride. There are no attendants and no queue. One empty chair reaches the platform and waits beneath the shelter. The empty chairs pass through the light one after another, their polished wood darkened by the damp night air. The chair moves away from the platform with a gentle pull. The roof beneath you begins to drift sideways as the ride turns. At first, the movement is low and slow. Then the circular crown lifts a little higher, carrying the chairs above the nearby domes and glass roofs. Rain falls beyond the edge of the canopy, but the seat remains beneath a small curved cover. The upper fair rotates below, in warm rings of light. You pass the tea room windows, the mechanical garden, and the long rain-lit promenade. Each time the platform comes around again, it appears slightly farther below. The motion is smooth enough that the hanging lamps beneath the canopy barely tremble as you circle. The ride reaches its highest gentle turn. From here, the upper roofs form a layered landscape of domes, glass canopies, and narrow glowing paths. The Ferris wheel stands beyond them, almost level with you through the mist. Far below, the central midway is only a ribbon of gold. The countryside beyond the fair remains dark and empty. For several slow circles, you seem to travel between the roofs and the low cloud. Then the ride begins to lower again. The chairs settle closer to the platform with every turn until the covered bridge returns beside you. Warm reflections slide across the wet roofs in repeating arcs each time you pass over the same side of the fair. Leaving the swing pavilion, you find a narrow boardwalk continuing along the highest roofs. Dark wooden boards run beneath a simple glass awning, shining where rain has blown in at the edges. Low lamps guide the way between chimneys, domes, and planted terraces. At several points, small bridges carry the boardwalk across open gaps between buildings. Looking down through one of them, you glimpse the glass roofs of the hidden pavilions far below. Ahead, the boardwalk bends around a tall tower and enters a garden suspended between two rooftops. The higher you go, the quieter the fair becomes, until only rain and distant machinery seem to follow you. The suspended garden is quieter than the courts below. Long planters overflow with ivy, ferns, and pale trailing flowers. Small trees grow from deep stone boxes, their wet branches leaning above the path. A shallow reflecting pool runs along the center, dark enough to hold the clouds and lamps together. Rain falls directly into it through an opening in the canopy. At the far end, the pool seems to meet the edge of the roof, where mist hides the drop beyond. A row of low benches sits beneath shelter on one side. You follow the pool until a rounded pavilion appears through the leaves. The water is so still between the raindrops that the surrounding plants seem to continue beneath its surface. The rounded pavilion is built from dark wood, glass, and narrow ribs of brass. Inside, several enormous silk balloons hang beneath the high roof. Their fabric is striped in muted cream, burgundy, deep blue, and faded green. Each balloon is tethered to a beautifully carved basket, resting on a circular floor track. Small lamps glow beneath the envelopes, filling the fabric with soft color. No flames roar, and no machinery rattles. The balloons simply breathe upward into the rafters, almost weightless. One basket waits beside an open set of glass doors leading onto an exterior launch terrace. Fine painted patterns circle the lower edges of the fabric, decorative but without letters, emblems, or names. The waiting balloon has a small covered basket lined with dark wood and brass. Its ropes rise into a vast cream and burgundy envelope above. Beyond the open doors, a circular terrace projects from the rooftop into mist. Rain falls around the terrace, but a broad canopy keeps the boarding point dry. The balloon moves forward along its floor track until the basket reaches the terrace edge. Then the tether above grows taut. Without any sudden lift, the basket becomes lighter against the platform. The roof begins to slip slowly downward as the balloon rises into the rainy night. Small brass lamps fixed to the basket glow against the wet ropes and darkened timber of the terrace. The balloon climbs above the upper fair at an almost impossible calm pace. The pavilion roof shrinks beneath you. Glass domes gather into small, shining shapes, while the aerial swing ride turns like a delicate clockwork flower below. The Ferris wheel is visible farther away, partly lost inside the mist. Rain whispers against the little canopy above the basket. A set of thin guide cables runs upward beside the balloon, keeping its route steady. Higher still, the roofs begin to merge into one glowing pattern. The fair seems to float in darkness with nothing around it but fields and cloud. The balloon never sways enough to disturb the view, and the ascent feels more like a room quietly rising than a flight. Near the top of the ascent, the balloon slows. The whole midnight fair lies below in a way even the Ferris wheel could not reveal. Its main avenues form warm curves through the center. Hidden glass pavilions shine beneath the roofs. The upper gardens appear as dark green islands between domes. The miniature railway is only a fine line at the outer edge. Beyond everything, mist moves across the empty countryside. For a few quiet moments, the balloon hangs beneath the cloud while the fair glows far below, like a secret map made only of light. From here, even the tallest attractions seem carefully placed pieces inside one enormous hidden design. The guide cables begin drawing the balloon gently downward. Instead of returning to the pavilion, the basket drifts toward another rooftop. A broad, circular terrace appears through the mist, ringed with pale stone and dark ironwork. Warm lamps mark its edge. At the center stands a domed building, taller and more ornate than any pavilion you have seen tonight. The balloon lowers beside a sheltered landing platform built into the terrace. Its basket settles without a sound. Behind you, the balloon remains tethered beneath the rain, while an arched entrance waits ahead. The new terrace feels more formal than the other upper roofs, as though it belongs to the very center of this higher world. Beyond the landing is a circular arcade, wrapped around the base of the tall domed building. Pale stone columns alternate with dark wooden doors and tall windows. The ceiling is painted deep blue and scattered with tiny gold stars, but none form letters or symbols. Warm lamps sit low between planters of white flowers and glossy leaves. The arcade curves so completely that its far end disappears from view. As you follow it, the sounds of the fair become faint once again. Halfway around, an open doorway reveals a room filled with slow-moving brass mechanisms and soft ticking. Between the columns, occasional openings look back toward the balloon terrace and the misty lights beyond. Inside, the circular room is built around a great vertical mechanism. Large brass wheels turn behind glass, connected by slender rods, polished shafts, and slow pendulums. Nothing resembles an ordinary clock face. There are no numbers and no hands pointing to an hour. Instead, small lamps brighten and fade around the mechanism in a patient repeating sequence. The soft ticking seems to come from every wall at once. A narrow stair curls upward around the machinery toward the roof. You follow it while the great wheels continue their measured turning below. With each turn of the stair, another level of gears disappears below until only the slow pulse of their lamps remains. The stair emerges into a quiet chamber beneath the crown of the tower. Tall windows curve around the room, each dark with rain. Far below, the midnight fair glows through the mist on every side. At the center stands a single large glass lantern, suspended above a circular brass platform. Its light is softer than the bulbs of the midway and steadier than the lamps in the pavilions. Beyond it, a final narrow door stands open to a covered terrace beneath the tower roof. Cold night air moves gently through the room. You cross toward the doorway, sensing that the highest part of the fair is still waiting just beyond. The chamber feels less like the top of a ride or pavilion and more like the quiet heart of everything you have crossed tonight. The narrow door opens onto the highest covered terrace of the tower. A curved roof shelters the inner edge, while the outer side remains open to the mist. Far below, the fair glows in warm circles and winding avenues, softened by rain and distance. The Ferris wheel turns slowly beyond the domes. Glass roofs shine like dark mirrors wherever the lamps catch them. For a while, nothing seems different from the night you have been exploring. Then the cloud thins along one distant edge of the countryside. A faint grey line appears beneath it. It is so pale that you almost mistake it for mist, but the line remains, quietly separating the fields from the sky. You stay beneath the terrace roof and watch the pale line broaden. The darkness does not disappear all at once. Instead, the sky changes by degrees, from black to deep blue, then to a softer slate color close to the horizon. The rain is still falling, but the drops seem finer now. Across the fair, thousands of lamps continue to glow, as though nothing has noticed the approaching morning. Yet their reflections are no longer the only light on the wet roofs. A cool silver tone begins to gather along glass domes, iron rails, and stone ledges. The fair looks different under it, less hidden perhaps, but no less beautiful. The rain gradually loses its steady rhythm. Drops still fall from the roof, but longer spaces open between them. Water continues to run through the gutters and down the dark stone of the tower. Beyond the terrace, mist drifts slowly across the highest roofs. One by one, the brightest clouds begin to show their edges. You listen for the sounds that followed you through the night. The distant organ, the quiet machinery, the soft turning of the great wheel. They are all still there, but each seems farther away than before. For the first time, the fair feels as though it is listening to the morning too. You step back through the lantern chamber and begin the journey downward. The great glass lantern remains suspended at the center, steady and pale above its brass platform. Behind you, the terrace door stays open to the changing sky. The spiral stair winds back around the great mechanism. Its wheels are still turning, but more slowly now. The lamps that brightened and faded around the machinery pause for longer between each pulse. Brass rods move with the same patient precision as before. Nothing has stopped. Nothing appears broken. The whole tower simply seems to be settling into a gentler rhythm as you descend. At the bottom of the mechanism room, you return to the circular crown arcade. The deep blue ceiling overhead is still scattered with tiny gold stars. Now, through the open spaces between the pale columns, the outside sky has become a soft blue-gray. The balloon waits where you left it on the terrace beyond. Its great striped envelope hangs almost motionless in the mist. You continue along the curve of the arcade instead. Warm lamps remain lit beside the white flowers, although the first natural light now reaches the leaves. Ahead, another covered stair begins to descend through the upper roofs. You follow it toward the quieter levels below. The stair brings you back among the rooftop gardens. Everything is familiar, but the colors have changed. The mechanical flowers sit beneath a cooler sky, their painted petals shining with rain. Some remain open, others close so slowly that you only notice after several steps. The dark metal tree stands at the center of its garden with beads of water along every branch. Beyond it, the wet roofs fade into pale mist. The lamps between the hedges are still glowing, but they no longer seem to illuminate the whole scene. Morning is beginning to do that for them. You follow the covered path onward between the gardens. The high boardwalk leads you back across the upper roofs. Rainwater gleams between the dark wooden boards. Below, the hidden glass pavilions are beginning to take shape in the growing light. Their domes are no longer only reflections and warm windows. You can see the dark iron ribs, pale stone walls and gardens enclosed beneath them. The fair feels larger in the half-light, yet somehow quieter. A few lamps along the boardwalk dim as you pass. Not suddenly. They simply soften until their glow becomes almost impossible to separate from the grey morning around them. The path carries you toward the lower galleries. You pass the tea room once more on your way down. Its windows are still warm against the cool morning. Inside, the round tables remain perfectly arranged, with cups, pale flowers, and deep green chairs exactly where you left them. A little steam still rises from the copper pot near the back wall. You step inside for one final moment of warmth. Beyond the glass, the Ferris wheel moves through fading mist while the roofs below slowly brighten. The fair has never asked you to hurry. Even now, with dawn approaching, there is time to stand beside the window and listen to the last soft rain against the glass. A descending gallery beyond the tea room carries you toward the lower fair. The path slopes gently beneath a glass roof, passing arched windows and quiet landings. Through one opening, you glimpse the empty waltz pavilion with its polished floor now reflecting the pale morning sky. Through another, the moving panorama has gone still on a painted, rainy coast. Farther down, the rooftop gardens disappear behind you. The air becomes cooler as you descend. At the bottom, the gallery opens beside the hidden pavilion quarter where your climb began. The sounds of the main midway are faintly returning from somewhere ahead. The hidden pavilions wait beneath their glass roofs in the blue-grey light before sunrise. The moon garden is still visible through one doorway, its pale flowers almost the same color as the morning beyond. Warm mist clouds another entrance where the tropical glasshouse remains hidden inside. Farther along, the winter pavilion holds a final cool silver glow. None of the doors are closed. Nothing prevents you from returning, but the fair now seems to be guiding you in another direction. A line of low lamps leads back toward the Grand Avenue. You follow them, carrying the memory of all those impossible rooms with you. The Grand Avenue is quieter than when you first entered it. Rainwater runs in thin streams beside the paving. The tall pavilions stand dark against the lightening sky, their upper windows still glowing softly. As you walk, a few lamps behind the glass fade one by one. There is no sudden blackout. Each light simply becomes a little warmer, then a little smaller, until the morning replaces it. The midway music grows clearer ahead. So does the slow turning sound of the Ferris wheel. Between the buildings, the first pale shape of the central square begins to appear through the mist. You step back into the central square. The carousel is still turning. The Ferris wheel still rises above the opposite roofs, but the whole square has changed beneath the early light. Wet stone now reflects silver blue sky as well as gold. The striped awnings look softer and less mysterious. Glass pavilions hold faint grey reflections of cloud. For the first time, you can see how empty the square truly is. No footsteps have appeared behind you. No voices arrive from the avenues. The fair has belonged entirely to the night, and for a little while longer, it still belongs to you. You walk toward the carousel for the final time. Its melody has slowed until each note seems to hang in the cool air. The carved horses and swans continue their gentle rise and fall. Warm bulbs still circle beneath the painted canopy. As you reach the outer rail, one section of lights goes dark, then another. The platform continues turning beneath them. Deep red, ivory, and gold pass through the growing morning with the same graceful patience as before. You remain until the music reaches a final soft phrase. The carousel completes one more circle. Then the platform settles quietly into stillness. Across the square, the Ferris wheel continues to move. Its carriages descend through pale mist, while the sky behind it grows lighter. You follow the wet path toward the boarding hall, though you do not step inside again. From beneath the shelter, you watch the wheel complete its slow turn. One carriage passes the platform, then another. The warm bulbs around the rim begin fading from the bottom upward. For a moment, the upper lights remain suspended against the morning sky. Then they too soften. The great wheel does not vanish. It simply becomes a dark, elegant outline above the roofs, waiting without movement. The main midway carries you back toward the entrance. Stalls that glowed richly through the night now sit beneath a cool wash of early light. Painted greens, burgundy and cream remain beautiful without their bulbs. Puddles still hold fragments of the roofs and sky. The game row is quiet. The confectionery windows have begun to clear as the warmth inside fades. The cafe tables remain beneath their canopy, perfectly arranged and empty. Behind you, the carousel no longer plays. Ahead, the entrance arch is visible beyond the last strings of lights. One by one, those strings begin to dim as you approach. You pass beneath the covered entrance walk again. Rainwater continues to drip from the canvas edges, though the rain itself has almost stopped. The glass lamps beneath the canopy are fading. The painted wooden posts and flower tubs look softer in the morning grey. At the far end waits the archway through which you entered hours ago. Beyond it lies the broad arrival ground. You pause before crossing. Behind you, the long midway recedes into mist, still lined with roofs, pavilions, and the dark outline of the wheel. It feels impossible that all of it could have been hidden from the ordinary road. The arrival ground is almost colorless beneath the early sky. The traveling wagons remain beneath the trees, their painted sides wet with rain. Brass lamps beside them have gone dark. The pale gravel shines with water, and narrow wooden walkways lead back toward the lane. Nothing looks abandoned. The fair simply appears finished for now. You cross the open ground at an easy pace. When you reach the edge of the trees, you look back once more. The entrance arch still stands beneath its striped canopy. Beyond it, only a few distant bulbs remain glowing through the mist. The vehicle waits quietly where the lane begins, rain beaded across the glass. The narrow country lane carries you away from the fair. Wet branches form a tunnel overhead, and drops fall occasionally from leafless twigs. For the first few bends, a warm glow remains visible behind the trees. Then the hedges close around the road. The music is gone. Only the quiet tires, the fading rain, and the first faint birdsong remain. When the lane reaches the open fields, the sky has brightened to pale silver. Water in the roadside ditches catches the new light. Ahead, the ordinary road waits beyond the ridge. You continue toward it, while the night loosens its hold on the countryside. At the top of the ridge, you slow and look back across the fields. Mist lies low over the grass. For a moment, the upper curve of the Ferris wheel is still visible beyond the distant trees. There are no lights on it now. The shape is only a darker circle against the pale sky. Then a bank of mist moves across the woodland. The wheel disappears behind it. You wait for the mist to pass. When it thins again, the treetops stand alone. There is no wheel above them. No glow rises from the field. Only wet branches, grey morning, and the quiet land stretching away. The ordinary road meets you exactly where you left it. Morning has reached the hedges and fields, turning every wet surface pale. A few distant houses appear beyond the bends. Smoke begins to rise from one chimney. Nothing along the road suggests that a fair could exist only a few miles behind you. You continue through the waking countryside while the clouds slowly lift. The night already feels farther away than it should. Yet somewhere beneath the quiet road sounds, you can still remember the slow carousel melody. And when another rainy midnight comes, perhaps that hidden turning will be waiting again. Perhaps the lights will return beyond the fields. For now, the road leads home.